92nd Street Y online media is made possible by the generous support of listeners like you. This program features comedian George Carlin in conversation with Judy Gold and was recorded April 30th, 2001, before a live audience at New York's 92nd Street Y.
George Carlin has won 2 Grammy Awards, starred in 10 HBO specials, and acted in many movies. He is the recent winner of the American Comedy Awards Lifetime Achievement Award. We are thrilled to have with us in conversation with George Carlin one of the most intelligently funny women in comedy today. Judy Gold is an Emmy Award-winning producer, writer, and performer, and appears often on The Drew Carey Show, The Tonight Show, and Hollywood Squares. Now I'd like you to join me in welcoming Ms. Judy Gold.
Welcome. I'm so excited. Are you excited? I'm so thrilled. This guy is, for a comic, to be able to even talk to him, it's an unbelievable thing. He has appeared on hundreds of TV shows, numerous films. He was the first comedian ever to have an HBO special. Those specials have garnered him 5 Emmy nominations and 6 Cable Ace Awards. He's released 14 solo albums, 10 of which have been nominated for Grammy Awards. And his first book, Brain Droppings, spent 40 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce one of the most gifted comedians to ever grace the stage, Mr. George Carlin. Oh, you're such a gentleman.
Thank you all very much.
Welcome.
Welcome to you.
I'm so excited. How
Hi,
you feeling?
Thank you. Just fine. Really stoked. You know, the book coming out is a nice kind of energy.
Well, it's hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
It is one of the funniest things.
I appreciate it.
I was reading the interview with Jesus the
yeah.
other day. I figured we'd bring that up in the synagogue.
Right.
I thought
Why don't you relax? He's kind of a neighborhood guy.
Yeah,
you know?
it's hilarious.
Thank you.
Can we talk about how you started?
Oh, anything you want. You want, and as specific as you like to
Well,
get
all
help
right.
me.
So you started in a duo, Burns and Carlin.
Yes.
And you started doing characters, which is completely opposite of what you do now.
Right.
What made the change for you?
Well, actually, before I met Jack Burns, I had a childhood plan to be a comedian. I modeled in my mind. I was 10 or 11 years old, and I loved Danny Kaye in the movies. I was kind of influenced by Spike Jones on records and a lot of the radio comedians, and then in the movies, Red Skelton, Bob Hope, Danny Kaye, especially because of the vocal facility and the fast lyrics and the faces and the accent dialects that he did. So I kind of had that dream, and I thought, well, how do you do that? And I thought, well, I'm a pretty good talker, and I like popular music. I could be a disc jockey first,
right,
and I wouldn't have to face a real audience. I'd be kind of removed from that. I mean, some version of this thinking was going on. And then, of course, if I was good at that, they'd have to let me be a nightclub comedian.
Right.
And if I was good at that, they'd have to let me in the movies. That was sort of the logic of it. So I had this path planned and thought out, and meeting Jack Burns hastened it a bit. I was in radio when I met Jack, and I was a DJ, and the fact that there were 2 of us made it easier for us to start, to get before audiences.
Right.
I think we might have spent a couple more years, either of us alone, dithering around, getting up the courage. But with 2 people to share the humiliation of failure in public, it was easy.
Right. And then you would do the weatherman and all these characters.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
No, but then you just decided, I'm not doing characters anymore.
Well, okay. I'll give you. I'll just refine that a little bit. What I did at first, you see, I had kind of 2 levels to me. I was a kid who was out of step with things. I had a lot of time on my own. My father was asked to leave early. He was, Patrick, here's your hat. He couldn't metabolize ethanol correctly, so. But he was fabulous. I didn't know him. He was a fabulous character and a successful salesman of advertising. He was the New York Sun's national advertising manager. and of the New York Post, too, when it was a broadsheet in the late 30s.
And a championships public speaker.
He was a great public speaker. He won the Dale Carnegie Public Speaking Contest sometime in 1935 or 6 against 600 opponents, I guess you'd call them. Anyway, what was I answering? It was real good.
How you would stop doing characters.
Oh, yes. You see, I had this dream of Danny Kaye, which is kind of a mainstream dream. I'm just looking at the movies. I'll be in the movies. But I was really kind of an outlaw kid. I quit everything, or I was kicked out of it. 3 schools, the altar boys, the choir boys, summer camp, was kicked out of there, the Air Force, and I just didn't fit because I was good scholastically, but I didn't like regulations and authority, and I was a rebellious kid. So that part of me got kind of submerged in pursuit of this sort of mainstream dream where you have to kind of play their game.
Right.
And what happened was I finally tired of that. I finally realized I was not being true to myself. I was doing these characters in media spoofs. They were always either movie preview spoofs or disc jockeys or news, sports, and weather or soap operas and things. And I had a 10-year career from that, and it was good. But underneath, this other guy was burning and yearning to get out.
And it was safe. The characters were safe.
Yes, it was safe, and it was that period. It was post-50s. It was the early part of the 60s were really an extension of the 50s. So it was in that era, and I fit the times.
Now, you didn't know your father. Was your mother funny?
My mother was funny. She worked in advertising as an executive secretary. She raised 2 boys through the war, through the Second World War, and was good mother. We had a love-hate relationship, as happens often. But she'd come home on the Broadway bus from downtown, or the subway at first, and she would come home with a story to tell about being on the bus. And she'd have 4 or 5 character voices she could do with them. And she would deliver, she'd finish it with a punchline. She'd have a way out. So she was kind of theatrical. She said, "Someday you must tell my story." So.
She smoked?
Did she smoke?
Someday.
No. Didn't smoke, didn't drink, but she was 5 feet tall and she was just terrific.
That's amazing. Now, all right, so you went sort of into an edgy type of comedy.
Yeah. Well, I just got a little more true to myself.
Right. Yeah. And you got to the line and over.
Sure.
How did your mother feel about that?
Oh, well, my mother knew which way the wind blew. She disapproved officially of my using filthy language, attacking religion, and attacking big business, both of which she held in high esteem.
Right.
But we lived on the same street as my school, Corpus Christi, and the nuns from the school, when I began to do well, the second phase here, the long hair cursing phase, I did a whole album called Class Clown about being I used to be Irish Catholic, now I'm an American, and I had I had things about confession and about schooling, and it was sort of the autobiographical period. And the nuns in the school, none of whom had taught when I was there, but it was a line. It was kind of like a continuing line of these Dominican nuns. They'd be walking on the street, and my mother would see them. One of them said to her, "Oh, we saw him on Johnny Carson the other night, and we're so proud of him, and the records are doing well." And my mother, ever the politician, said, "Yes, sister, but oh, the awful language, the awful language." And the nun said, "No, don't you see? He's trying to use it as an example of how there's hypocrisy in language and how these words are being used, and they're not really harmful in themselves." And she was standing there like this, I guess. And from that moment on, she was fine with it because she had received the imprimatur of the church in a way. She knew it was okay, and so she was happy to be quote unquote a star's mother. You know? She came on the Mike Douglas show. And
she did?
Played that role very well. Yeah. She had that. She was grandiose. She had aristocratic pretensions.